You know, the mountains have a funny way of testing you. They don't throw noise at you. They throw silence, and they wait to see what you fill it with. My granddad built our cabin, the Ridgeback, back in the 50s, long before all this. Community living. Spilled up the valley. He built it with timber he felled himself, and he always said, "Jed, this land doesn't belong to you. You just belong to it for a little while. Take care of it." And that's what I was doing last October, just driving up the old logging road in my '98 Tacoma, coffee in the console, looking forward to 2 days of absolute quiet. Just me and the wind in the pines. But I smelled it before I saw it. It wasn't pine, it was charcoal lighter fluid and sunscreen. In October, I rounded that last bend and my heart just stopped. It wasn't a cabin. It was a circus. There must have been a dozen minivans and SUVs crammed onto my gravel patch, bumper to bumper. Tents. Tents. Were being pitched on the wildflower patch my wife loved. Kids were screaming, chasing each other with pool noodles, and yeah, someone was unpacking an inflatable hot tub. I didn't even put the truck in park. I just let it idle, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, trying to make sense of it. And then I saw her, standing on my porch like she was christening a ship, holding a clipboard like a scepter. Brenda. She's let's call her the Queen Bee of the Mountains Reach Estates HOA down in the valley. A woman who believes the world is a messy spreadsheet, and God put her on earth to correct the formatting. She's been after me for years to get the Ridgeback annexed into her little kingdom. You know, for community cohesion. I've always told her politely to go pound sand. My family's land was never part of her development. She saw my truck and didn't even flinch. She just waved. A bright, cheerful, "You're late for my party" wave. That's what broke me out of the shock. It wasn't just trespassing. It was conquest. I killed the engine, the sudden silence making the kids' shrieks even louder. I stepped out, my boots crunching on my gravel. "Jed, you're early," she chirped, clicking her little pen. "Don't worry, I've got the inventory list. We'll make sure everyone uses coasters." I just stared at her. I could feel the blood pulsing behind my eyes. "Brenda, what is this?" She let out that little airy laugh, the one that says, "You're being dramatic." "It's the HOA community retreat, a little fundraiser. You know, you never use this place, Jed. It's practically abandoned. So I just borrowed it for the weekend. It's all for a good cause. The family's all paid a small fee. It's going right to the new tennis courts." I wanted to roar. I don't know what I wanted to do, but Granddad's other piece of advice echoed in my head. Never wrestle a pig. Jed, you both get dirty and the pig likes it. So, I took a long, slow breath, tasting the fake coconut from somebody's sunscreen. "You rented my cabin to 12 families. Well, leased, really," she corrected, like that made it legal. "And don't worry, I have a waiver for everyone. The HOA's legal team vetted it. We're covered." A man in a bright orange polo shirt, probably one of her HOA board disciples, walked by with a bag of ice. "Hey, Brenda, where's the master breaker? We need to get the, karaoke machine plugged in." I looked at Brenda. She looked at me, her smile tight. "Jed, if you're going to be difficult, I can have the HOA's council call you. But frankly, it's a bad look denying the community this. It's about sharing, that was it. That word, sharing, I didn't say another thing. I just nodded. A slow, quiet nod. I could see the victory flash in her eyes. She thought she'd won. She thought I was intimidated by her clipboard and her imaginary lawyers. "Great. Glad you understand," she said, turning back to her crowd. "Okay, people. The cabin is officially open." I got back in my truck, started the engine, and I drove away. I watched her in the rearview mirror, standing there, hands on her hips, just beaming. The conquering queen. But Brenda, for all her spreadsheets and bylaws, didn't know the mountain. She knew the paved roads and the landscaping contracts. She didn't know the old trails. She didn't know about the Firefly Trail, the old access road my grandfather used that loops up and around the back ridge, completely hidden from the main drive. I parked the Tacoma in a thicket of spruce trees about half a mile up, where I could still see the roof of my cabin, and I sat there for about an hour just thinking, listening to the faint thump-thump of some terrible pop music echoing up the valley. They were invaders, but you don't fight invaders by screaming at them. You cut off their supply lines. I got out of the truck, grabbed my small toolkit from the back, and started walking. The trail was quiet, just pine needles under my boots. It took me 10 minutes to get to the back of my property. There it was. The old heavy-duty utility box, set about 50 yards from the cabin itself, hidden by a cluster of rhododendrons. Brenda's karaoke king had been looking for the indoor breaker panel. He didn't know about the master feed. I opened the heavy metal door. It creaked. I looked at the big black industrial main switch. I hesitated for maybe half a second. Then I put my hand on it, felt the heavy-duty spring, and I pulled. Thunk. Down at the cabin, the pop music died instantly. Like a light switch, I heard a collective groan. Ah! Drift up through the trees, I smiled. Just a little. That was step 1. Step 2 was 20 feet to the left. The main water valve. My granddad installed it himself, drawing from the deep artesian well on the property. It was a big, heavy red cast iron wheel. It hadn't been turned in probably 20 years. I put both hands on it, and I heaved. It groaned, metal scraping against rust, scree, and then it turned. I turned it and turned it and turned it until I felt that solid stop. The well was now disconnected. I waited. It took about 3 minutes. First, I heard a toilet flush, and then, hey, the toilet's not filling up. Then, is the sink water gone for you? The panic was slower, more confused now for step 3. I walked back down the Firefly Trail, got in my truck and drove all the way back down the mountain, out onto the main county road, and back up my main driveway. The one currently blocked by a dozen minivans. I parked about 100 yards short, right by the main gate. My big heavy iron gate that Granddad had commissioned from a blacksmith in '62. The gate Brenda and her army had just left wide open. I got out. I pushed the heavy iron bars, clang, until they met. I took the heavy logging chain from the bed of my truck, wrapped it through the bars 3, 4, 5 times. And then, I took out the brand new case-hardened padlock I'd been meaning to install. I threaded it through the chain, and I clicked it shut. Click. I was surprisingly calm. I felt clear. I got back in my truck, drove it up to my favorite overlook on the ridge, the one I'd come to in the first place. I poured my now lukewarm coffee, and I just sat and I watched. The sun started to set. The mountain got dark fast, and down below, the flashlights started to come out. 1 by 1, then 2, then a dozen. They looked like angry fireflies. They were trapped. No power, no water, and no escape. The real retreat was just beginning. I sat up there on the ridge for a good hour, just sipping that coffee, listening to the mountain get its voice back. First the crickets, then the wind. And underneath it all, a new sound. Not music, but yelling, faint, frustrated, angry yelling. It was beautiful. I gave it 1 more hour just to let it, marinate. Then I picked up my phone. I've only got 1 cop in my contacts. Sheriff Brody. His voice crackled. Hey, Brody, it's Jed. Jed, don't tell me that old bear's back in your trash. Worse, I said. It's Brenda. I heard him let out a long, tired sigh. Lord, what's she done now? Tried to fine you for the color of your roof again? Something like that. She rented my cabin out to 12 families. And I I locked him in. There was a long pause, just silence, then I heard him snort. Then it turned into a full-on, deep-belly laugh. You locked him in? Jed, you magnificent bastard. Are they safe? Oh yeah, I said. They're safe, just inconvenienced. No power, no water, and no way out. I just figured you should know. In case she calls you claiming I've started a hostage situation. Hostages, he chuckled. Right, well, technically, she's the one holding them hostage by selling them a fraudulent rental. And all of them are trespassing on your land. Look, Jed, I'm off duty. My truck won't start, if you catch my drift. Probably won't start until, 8 a.m. tomorrow. You handle it, but, try not to let 'em starve. Got it, Brody, thanks. And Jed, yeah, get pictures. I spent the night in the cab of my truck parked on the ridge. It was the best show I'd seen in years. I watched their flashlights swarm the gate. I could feel the vibrations as they rattled the chain. I watched 'em build a pretty pathetic campfire in my gravel driveway. I saw car doors opening and shutting all night. Little arguments breaking out. It was a masterpiece of suburban collapse. Dawn broke, and oh, it was ugly down there. Looked like a refugee camp after a 3-day festival. Trash everywhere. 2 tents had collapsed. People were huddled in their cars. And there was Brenda, clipboard still in hand, phone to her ear, probably screaming at her lawyers. Around 8:01 a.m., I heard a siren, just one, coming up the main road. I drove the Tacoma down the Firefly Trail and parked neatly behind the cabin, out of sight. I walked around to the front just as Sheriff Brody's cruiser pulled up to the gate. Brenda ran at him. "Sheriff!" "Thank God." "Arrest that man," she shrieked, pointing right at me. He's terrorized us. He locked us in. He cut the utilities. This is false imprisonment. This is barbarism." Brody just slowly took off his hat. He wiped his brow even though it was cold out. "Morning, Brenda." "Morning, folks." He walked past her right up to the gate. He looked at my chain. He looked at my padlock. He whistled. That's a nice lock, Jed." "Thanks, Brody." "New sheriff." Brenda was practically vibrating. "What are you doing?" "Cut this lock. We have children here." Brody turned to her, his face calm. "Brenda, you're trespassing." The silence was absolute. Even the birds stopped chirping. "What? What did you say?" "I said," Brody said, talking slow, "you are trespassing. All of you." I was at the county clerk's office at 7:30 this morning. Pulled the original plat maps from 1953. He walked back to his cruiser, pulled a big rolled-up tube from the passenger seat. He unrolled it on the hood of his car. A big, old, beautiful blueprint. "This here," he said, tapping the paper, "is the Ridgeback parcel, owned by the Hale family. That's Jed, and this little dotted line about half a mile down the road, that is the northern boundary of the Mountains Reach Estates. Your HOA map, Brenda, is a fantasy. You're not just on his land. You're deep in it." Brenda's face went, "I don't even know the color. It was white, then red, then purple. That's impossible. The developer's maps, our bylaws. Your bylaws don't mean squat on private property, ma'am. You have committed felony trespass. And you," he said, pointing at one of the dads, and you are all party to it, and seeing as you took money for it." He grinned. "I'd say that's fraud, too." One of the dads spoke up. She told us this was the community lodge." "Yeah," a woman yelled from her car. "She charged us $500 a family for this. You told us it was all-inclusive." And just like that, the tide turned. The whole mob, all dozen families, turned on her. They weren't mad at me anymore. They were mad at Brenda. "Refund? You lied. I'm calling my lawyer." Brenda just crumpled. Her clipboard fell to the gravel. "Now," Brody said, his voice cutting through the noise, "here's what's gonna happen. Jed, you gonna be nice enough to let these folks go?" I looked at the crowd. They looked pathetic. I looked at Brenda, who looked broken. "Yeah, Brody, I'll let 'em go." I walked over, pulled the key from my pocket, and unlocked the padlock. The chain fell with a heavy clank. "You all have 1 hour," Brody announced. "Pack your trash. Pack your inflatable tubs. And get off this mountain. Jed has agreed not to press charges. If you're gone in 60 minutes, and if I find one granola bar wrapper, I'm coming back. Understood?" It was a scramble. The quietest, most frantic packing you've ever seen. The final insult. I went back to the utility box. I flipped the main breaker. Thunk. I turned the water valve. Scree! I did it just so they'd have power to, inflate their tires and open their automatic sliding doors. Brenda was the last one out. She wouldn't look at me. She just drove past in her big white Lexus, her face like stone, but here's the part that still gets me. That's not where it ended. I sent the pictures and a detailed invoice for cleanup and property restoration to the entire HOA board. The fallout was nuclear. They had an emergency meeting. Get this, they censured her. A slap on the wrist. They paid my invoice from the community fund. But they didn't kick her off the board. They just told her, "Bad Brenda." Life went on. The mountain got quiet again, but I saw her about 3 weeks later at the general store down in town. I was getting feed. She was getting I don't know, kale chips? We both reached for a paper bag at the same time. Our hands almost touched. I stopped. She stopped. We just locked eyes and she wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. She wasn't ashamed. She just smiled. A tiny little smile, just at the corners of her mouth. Then she took her bag and she walked out. And that's the thing that haunts me. I won, I know I won, but when she smiled, got this cold sinking feeling that this was just round one. So, here's my question for you all. What do you think? Did I do the right thing? Should I have pressed charges and taken her to court? Or was the public humiliation and the padlock enough? When you're dealing with someone like that, someone who doesn't play by the rules, what's the line between justice and just stooping to their level? Let me know what you would have done down in the comments. I could actually use the advice.